program may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Discretion is advised. When you look into the face of darkness, it stares back at you. The question is, who's watching who? Welcome to the dark side. This is the Watchers Paranormal Podcast.
Tonight's podcast is titled The Demon King. This one's really scary. In fact, they're all scary, but this one really stands out. As told by a friend of mine, years ago after she was married, her husband and her moved into a home in downtown Toronto. They were there for a couple of years. Everything was fine, except once in a while they'd hear strange noises in the hallway. At one time she said she heard what sounded like someone dragging themselves down the hallway. That was kind of where there was no pets in the house, no children, just the two adults. A lot of whispering during the night, sounds of footsteps. I mean, it's an old home. The house has already settled, obviously, but, with the hot and cold temperatures over the years, you'll get furniture cracking, you'll get other sounds. I mean, that's normal in an older house. But she insists that wasn't the case. So tonight I'm going to tell you the story as told by her to me. This is called The Demon King. A young couple had just been married, looking for a house. Came upon a Victorian home, decided to rent the home. They moved in, things were normal for the first while, and then the strangeness began to happen. One night, they were both sound asleep, and the wife heard a whisper come out from the hallway. Their bedroom door was closed, so she ignored it. As the night went on, she kept hearing a whispering that turned into a whimpering sound. So she woke her husband up. He got up, opened the door, looked out into the hall. Nothing there. Very long hall with the front door with stained glass, so you can see the light from the street post out on the corner shining through the door into the hallway. He went up to the door was locked, came back into the room, told her everything was fine, there was no one in the hall. She must have been dreaming. A few months went by. Then she heard the same whimpering sound in the hallway and thought, this time I'm going to go out myself and take a look. She got up, walked towards the door. Her heart was pounding, her palms were sweaty. So she peers out to the left and sees the dark hallway. Nothing there. And she hears that whispering sound again. Now she turns quickly to the right. And there, lying on the floor, looking into her eyes, she sees the Demon King. Laying there like a wounded animal, whimpering, reaching out to her hand, like as if it was asking for help. Dressed in a scarlet cape and a crown broken and bent at the tips. He looked like he'd been wounded and was asking for help, crying out. His face was disfigured, like something grotesque, something ancient, something between heaven and hell. She stood there frozen, couldn't move while this thing slowly drags itself towards her. It's getting closer to her. Closer and closer until it's literally an arm's reach away from her. She lets out a blood-curdling scream. Her husband comes running out of the bedroom, grabs her as she falls into his arms and faints. He looks around, there's nothing there. He brings her to the bed, lays her down, tries to get her back to consciousness. She comes out of it, and she starts to freak out. So he calls 911. The paramedics arrive soon after and take her to the hospital, where they keep her under observation for 3 days. She's then discharged and referred to a psychiatrist. She comes back home, afraid, but continues to live there with the support of her family and friends. Months go by, everything's calm, and one night she is awakened by a whimpering sound coming out from the hall. She's frozen in fear. She wakes her husband up and tells him. He tells her she's having a nightmare. She can't take it anymore. She keeps hearing the whimpering, the dragging. This time, she's gonna go out and face her fears. She gets up, slowly walks to the door, turns the doorknob, opens the door slowly, looks out into the hall, and there's nothing there. She turns around, starts to walk back into the bedroom, and then she suddenly hears,
"Why hast thou forsaken me?"
Tears start to fall down her eyes. She realizes this thing is standing right behind her. She quickly turns around, and there he is, face to face with her. The air around him starts to get wispy, and a black mist starts to envelop him. He looks her straight in the eye and says to her,
"This is my domain. Bow before me and worship me."
She starts to shake with fear and starts to scream when her husband suddenly awakes. He walks towards her, and the demonic figure that once stood before her gets taken away in the black, wispy whirlwind, and she collapses. Suddenly the chandelier starts to shake in the hallway, and you could smell a strong smell of sulfur. The husband starts freaking out. His wife came to eventually. They closed the door. They spent the whole night praying, and when the sun came up, they got the courage to walk out of the room. That same morning, they met with a real estate agent and started looking for a new home. Within a few weeks, they found a new place and moved out. She can still smell that sulfur to this day. She's doing a lot better, but she'll never forget what happened that night when she stood face to face with the Demon King.